Hey guys, in this video, we'll be creating an OpenAI app, something very similar to ChatGPT, but a very mini version of ChatGPT. We won't have the threaded responses which we have, like a string of responses. We have multiple chats and a session which manages all the chats together. We'll have just one response, but in a later video, we'll be trying out multiple responses as well. So what the main agenda of this app was, when I initially started, was to show how to stream real-time data from OpenAI. What I mean by that is, say if I have a generate a random response here, all right, and just look at the response just right over here, all right. Click on ask and see how this comes real time. So basically, it comes like it just shows a threaded stream of data. So basically, what that is doing is it's not waiting for all the data to come together, but it's every chunk of data, as and when it comes, it's showing over here, which accounts for better user experience and also the fact that the user does not have to wait for such a long time and you just show a loading state at that point of time. So basically, what to start off with, go to OpenAI and create an account, all right? So you'll be redirected to this page over here, platform.openai.com/overview. Click on your dashboard and click on View API keys, and then create a new secret key, all right? And then copy the key which you have. Cool. So now let's start off. We'll be using Next.js 13 for this application. So let's do npm create next app experimental app, and we'll call this OpenAI Next.js streaming, because the real-time functionality which is comes real-time the chunks of data, that's called streaming data. And we'll be using TypeScript, we'll be using ESLint, Tailwind CSS, and the SRC directory, and we'll use an import alias. All right. So first of all, this will just take a second or two because PMPM is really fast. And once that is done, what we want to do is it's taking longer than it usually does. Okay. What we want to do now is open it using Visual Studio Code or whatever your preferred text editor is. Okay, I was trying this before and okay, so we're here now. What we want to do is create a new .env file because we want the OpenAI API key inside here. So basically, what we want to do over here is copy paste our API key just like that. I'll be deleting this API key later, so you can't use this in your application. But the point is to have an OpenAI underscore API underscore key as the key of your environment variable and SK etc as the value. Now save this. All right. Now what we want to do is start off with how this works. So I'll just close this application and the server that is running on, so that we run this on localhost 3000 as well. Not that it matters, but we'll run this application, and this is how the boilerplate Next.js Tailwind CSS application looks like. Just open localhost 3000, and in a second or two, we'll see this. Now what I want to do is just clean this app a little bit, and I start with the front end. And I have the timestamp below on where the front end part of it ends, kind of. So you can just skip to the back end if that's what you want. All right. So inside the app directly inside page.tsx, I'll clean this up a bit. I'll remove everything inside main, and we'll just replace these class names. So what I want to do over here is I'll just open my reference code. Yeah. So basically, let's add a few class names here. Let's add flex call, because we want that centered. So we just use flex here, flex call, h full, min h screen, because this might go beyond the screen. I don't want it to overflow after that in case it goes beyond the screen. So we go h full and min h screen. We go width full. We go item center, justify center to center align everything. We'll have a few more class names over here. Let's give it a background of slate 900 and gap of 4 and p of say 24. All right. What I want to do now is delete that. Have a config error. Okay. Anyways, that doesn't matter for now. So once that is done over there, I think I didn't spell justify center correctly. Okay, we're kind of there. Let's also add the inter class name over here because I want that as well. So basically what you do for that is add a space after P24. That is very important because this is appends the inter dot class name as a string to that. Alright, so this is coming from there. Now the main container is done. Now let's add a heading over here. The heading will have a class name of text5xl, text slate 200, font bold, max width of excel and text centered, and ask a question and get a chat GPT type response. I couldn't think of any copyright text was okay. Anyways, you know what? I don't want to waste too much time on the UI, so I'm gonna copy paste this over here and show just this is the card which comes below it. So this is the we give it a background of 800, we give it a padding of 12, MD rounded with full and max width of large. All right, then we'll have another H2 over here with a response. Basically, it's a 3XL, text slate 200, font bold, max with Excel and text center. And again, I don't want to waste too much time doing the UI because that's not the point of this video. Alright, now we'll have the response component after this, so we'll build that later. But that is what we have till now, and that should look like that, exactly what we want. And inside this we'll have the form component. So basically this page over here is a server component, and we want the form inside a client component because we want to manage the submit handlers, the input hand on change handlers and all that. So what we want to do is inside the src directory add a components directory and add form.tsx, which will look something like this. Okay, it didn't zoom into the right place. Let me just move my camera over here. So we have form.tsx over here. Alright. It doesn't end like that. Form.tsx, and just click on enter and we should have created a file. Let me zoom out again and go to components slash form.tsx. Let's export default a function named form. Alright. And then let's return a form over here. For some reason, I'm having an issue with my neon. Just bear with me over here. Let me just. Okay, I'm having some issue with my ESLint config at the top, so just ignore that. We'll return a form over here, basically. So yeah, so this will return a form, and this will have an on submit handler. For now, I'll keep it as empty, but we'll change that in a bit. Let's go inside this form. I'll have a text area, and the text area will have obviously a value which will be input. We'll manage that in a second. Have the on chain handler e set input to e.target.value, and next we'll have the class name with full h64 bg slate. Well, you could have bg transparent, but I'll have bg slate 800 over here. Border, I think with Tailwind you don't need a BG anyways for the text area, but that's fine for now. You'll have a BG slate 600, border slate 600, and a text slate 200. Alright, so let's just have the text area, that is fine. Let's manage the input over here. Let's get input set input from use state, which will come from React, and this will have an empty string as the default value. Alright, now what we want to do is inside the app slash page.tsx, inside this card div, just have the form which comes from add slash component slash form. Alright, now if I go back, I have an internal server error. Right, sorry. this needs to be a client. Did I not add the client directive? Okay. Just add the use client directive to the top and that will become a client component, and we have the response, sorry, the form component over here. Alright, now let's also add the button over here. Now the button will have a class name with full bg slate 900 py3 font bold, and text slate of 200. Let's add a is loading state over here to manage if it is disabled or not. By default, this will be false. All right, over here, let's just say disabled is equal to is loading. That means if we're loading, then the button will be disabled, else it won't be. And again, something like that. Copilot to the rescue. Okay, we have the is loading state now. All right, let me just clear my, yeah. And we should have the button over here. So that is done now. That is, well, pretty much there. Let's have the submit handler over here. Kind of what we wanted the submit handler over here. Let's have const handle submit asynchronous react.form event, yeah, and HTML form element. This only if you're using TypeScript. We don't need to use that colon blah 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 after if you're not using TypeScript. Well, kind of. Okay, let's just go through this. We prevent the default. We set is loading to true. We get the response from our backend. This is the API route, which, by the way, you can host using Vercel edge functions. You would probably want to use edge functions for this because serverless functions won't be able to stream you back the response, and edge functions obviously have a smaller sleep time. What's that called? What the term? Yeah, sleep something. I forget the term. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, it has the start time to after it sleeps is a little larger with serverless functions, and edge functions is almost nil, and you just pay for what you use, just like serverless functions. So yeah, you should probably host this using the edge functions, and just have slash API slash chat. We'll create that route in a second. It's not a chat, I'll just say response over here. That is fine. We'll have the input being sent back as a JSON.stringified object, and it's a body, and the headers need to be content type application slash JSON. We won't be getting the data back like this. I'll tell you why in some time, but we just set is loading to false after this. Alright, now, you know what, now let's go back to our API. So inside the API, let's create a folder named response slash route.ts. All right. Okay. So what we want to do over here, first of all, we basically want to check if the API key exists or not. We can do this in two places. We can either do this over here, or we can do this inside the utilities. But you know what? We can do this over here. If not process.env.openai underscore API underscore key, we throw new error missing OpenAI API key. This is only for the developer. It's not for the front end, so we throw it outside the post request. Now, let's have a post request over here. This will be asynchronous. Obviously, we'll get the request, which will be a request type. This is obviously an arrow function, so we have that. Now we get the prompt from the front end or the input, right? So we can get the input, or you know what? Let's call this prompt over here. So we will have to rename this over there, by the way. Let's just rename this to say prompt, which is the input over here. All right, let's get the prompt from await request.json. This is equivalent to doing this, by the way. So this is basically, if we get data from here, this is just data.prompt. All right, So we get that by destructuring the prompt from here, and let's actually type this request JSON. So this will be as an object a prompt of string. Great. So this, we know for a fact that now prompt is a string. Now if prompt has not been sent back, we return new response. Alright, missing prompt and status is 400, exactly what we need. Now comes a little bit of the complicated part of using OpenAI. Alright, so first of all, I'm going to go inside my SIC directory and create a utils function, and inside that let's create utils file, sorry. Alright, I forgot what I named this before. Yeah, okay. Let's go utils file, and over here call this open-ai-stream.ts. Alright, and we'll just outsource a lot of the functionality to this so that the API file doesn't become too congested. Alright, now this is where a little bit of the complication starts coming up. So let's export basically. Okay, first of all, we want the payload which is being sent to OpenAI. Start off again. If I go to the documentation, all right, and go to chat completion over here, let's look at the uh, yeah, let's look at this, all this stuff being sent over here, the model, the messages. There's also a lot more things being sent over here which is not shown over here. One second. uh, okay, it sends stuff like n and prompt as well, which is for some reason not in this documentation. But basically what we want is an interface for the payload which is being sent in. So first of all, I'll export that interface from this file. So we'll export this interface, OpenAI stream payload. Why am I doing this? I'll actually export another function over here called OpenAI stream, and this will take in the payload from the API route, which will be of a type of this. That's why we're creating this. So we want this interface to be created. I'll copy paste this from my code base, and you can just copy paste this from the GitHub repository in the description. So this will have the model which we saw over there. This will have messages. Basically, I'll tell you one thing. This is actually the chat completion, which is the model used behind ChatGPT. It's not the text completion. Text completion is basically we write something and it serves as a text completion. It's a little more expensive than chat completion. We was using chat completion, which is used by ChatGPT here, and the messages is sent as well this role and content separately, right? So this is an array of the role and the content. The role is basically a user or a system or an assistant. In our case, all the roles will be a user, right? So and the content will be the input or the prompt which is being sent in, right? So we need to type this ChatGPT message as well. So we'll do that over here as well. Export interface ChatGPT message. This will have the role, which in our case, let's make ChatGPT agent over here. We'll export that type in a bit, but we'll also have the content as a string. And let's have the let's have the export type, because this will be a type of a union of strings. ChatGPT agent would be a user or a system. In our case, it will always be user, but if you're thinking about extending this application later, you can use this export interface. We have the messages, we have temperature, top P, frequency, penalty. You can find all this in the documentation. I won't go into those details on what all these are, but you can find those in the documentation. Right. So let's go to this function now. Actually, we're fine with this for now. Now here we'll be sending the API, calling the function. So we need to set the payload over here, which will be of a type of OpenAI stream payload, which is that model messages, etc., which we created. Now I'll copy paste this again as well. I will again, this is in the GitHub, which is linked below, and you can copy it from there. So it will be using the GPT 3.5 turbo model, which is used by ChatGPT. We'll use the messages, which has the role of a user, content, which is the prompt which is being sent in. Ideally, you would want to sanitize this, remove the spaces at the end, etc. But I wouldn't do that here. Temperature, top P, just look at that temperatures just to have how much randomness do you want. Top P, if I'm not wrong, is I don't remember. Actually, don't remember what top P is. Let's just look at that. I can't find where this is in the documentation, but text completion top P. Yeah, so basically these two control how deterministic the model is in. So basically, yeah, that's why top temperature and top P come in, and all of these are, well, in the documentation. Max token is how many tokens you want in the response, and this is the most important part. We want stream set to true. By default, it is false. I think it is false, but anyways, you set stream to true. What that does is it can send you back the response in the form of a stream, and that is what we'll be using over here, right? So like as and when a particular thing is generated, it will send that response to us, and it will keep that thread open till all the data is sent, right? We now what we want to do is get the stream from that function we call in OpenAI stream, and we pass in, let's see what we need to pass in. We need to pass in the payload, and I messed up something here. I don't know, I don't think I did. And we'll return the response as the stream. Now we don't know what that is sending. That is where that function comes into play, and this is the more complicated part of this video. Till now it was very much easier, and to be fair, a lot of this is just boilerplate code, which actually even I copied from somewhere. So if I go to actually let's go Twitter bot, OpenAI. So yeah, I found this repository of the book, but if you go to this repository over here, this is this they had in the Vercel official YouTube channel as well. So he talks about doesn't go into how the code works, but he just goes broadly over what is being done in the code. He doesn't go into too much detail. But I link that video in the description as well, so you can take a look at that. It is API generating, and see they're doing something very similar. They're calling OpenAI stream, and then reading through this. So to be fair, this isn't code that you would normally like write line by line. Even Josh in his YouTube channel had a video yesterday about this, and even he was writing line by line, and he said something very true. You won't write this line by line by yourself in a real world scenario. You would probably just copy paste it and just go over what it is. But in this video, because for tutorial sake, and I want you guys to understand what is happening, I just go line by line. But in the end, you'll probably just end up copy pasting something. But it is important that you understand what is happening over here. All right. So to start off with, we will make a request to chat/completions inside OpenAI, right? So we'll get the response, we'll await, fetch, we'll call HTTPS, this one, but we'll change this a little bit. It is supposed to be v1/chat/completions, and we'll pass in a few options. Now the method needs to be post. The headers which you'll be passing in will have a content type obviously of application/JSON, because we send in JSON to the API, and we want the authorization over here, which is a bearer, and we pass in the process.env.openai and this API key, or obviously it is a non-valid string. And we want to pass in the body, which is just JSON.stringify of the payload, right? Uh, Basically, this is how authentication works over here. I can't find a lot of the documentation. I'm sorry. Okay, well, you can use this OpenAI library if you're using, but I didn't want to. Just go to, okay, see this authorization bearer, and then you pass in the OpenAI API key. That is how this is working. And let's now go to this application and look at the other part of it. We send this, and now by generally what you would do is, if you let me just, I don't think this will, yeah, okay, generally what you would do is, when you get this response back, you'll await the JSON, you'll send back the JSON, and then you'll get the content from that, and then just show that content together after the loading state is complete. But we don't want to do that, right? That's where streams come in, and we'll use the concept of something called readable stream. So if I just go to the documentation, MD and docs. So if you look at this readable stream, interface of the streams API represents a readable stream of byte data. Now the fetch API offers a concrete instance of readable stream through the body property of a response object. So that is what we'll be using here. And this is something which is, well, it is a particular scenario which you're using over here. But if you say this fetch request example over here, they're doing something very similar to what we'll be doing here. We're fetching the response, and then we're returning a new readable stream, and then doing all this over here. And I'll try to explain all this properly, but if you don't understand this, just go through the documentation once and a couple of reads, and you will start understanding a little bit. So basically what I want to do here is get a stream object, which is just a new readable stream, and we need to pass in a configuration over here. And if I just control space over here, even if you're using VS Code, this works. Control space, and you will see what all you can pass in over here. So, so you can pass in full, type, start, etc. We'll use a start over here as the function. So you can look at what that does over in the documentations. Let's just go to start. So they're using the start over here as well. And we'll use this function push very similar to this. The following function handles each data chunk. So we'll be sending each data chunk into this function push, and we'll be working through that. So we'll have this start function over here, which basically takes a controller as well. Now the controller is a readable stream default controller. That's fine. Now look at this. All right. Now we have the push event. Now here they don't have this, but if you look at this as well, they work with something called events over here. And the event, to make working with this easier, because readable stream isn't that easy to work with, we will use something called this event source parser. Now if you look at the npm, I'm not using Dr. Event source. So basic, not this one, event source. Yeah. So this is basically, or well, you can say a wrapper around readable stream, basically without any assumptions about how actual stream of data is retrieved. It helps you compile the data properly and then work with it and feed chunks of data to that function. This is where the you can look at this over here, and we need to take this event from here. Obviously we need to install this as well. First of all, let's go pnpm, excuse me, event, add event source parser. If you're using npm, use npm I. Once that is done, we need to pass this event in over here, and we can import this past event. My auto import isn't working, but basically what you would do is import past event reconnect interval from event source parser. Alright, that will work now, and we should have this working, and the function to be set up. This is somewhat like a closure function, right? So this is inside the start function over there. Now, first of all, we will check that the events type is going to be an event. In that case, only we will start working, and we can now get the data which comes from the event, which is response data. Data is equal to event by destructuring it. Now, if you go to this particular site about the completions, I'll link this in the documentation, but if you go to the API references of completion, it talks about stream over here, whether to stream back partial progress if set tokens will be sent as data only server if sent events. This is what we are working it with over here. You can read more about this in MDN. So this is called a server sent event, and we're working with that over here, and as they become available with the stream terminated by a data done message. Now if the done message has come as the last chunk of the data, we want to end this. So for that, what we will do is, that means now if, what did I do? Sorry, that was my bad. Event dot event. Okay, if the data is basically done in the end, we want to get the controller which we got in the start, and then call the close function on it. That will close the readable stream and not work with it anymore, and it will just stop that over there. And we want to return from this function. Alright, now if it is not yet done, we write a try catch error. Obviously, if we get an error, we have a controller dot error function available to us. So just pass an error as the error over here now inside the try catch. Now you can actually pass the JSON which is coming in. Alright, we get the JSON from JSON dot parse the data, and now the text which is coming from here is coming a little weird, but it comes as a form of JSON dot choices, the first choice obviously in this case, and we got something called delta, and this might or might not come in, so you want to go delta question mark over there. Alright, if that doesn't come in, it will just go here, else it will throw an error. That's why we send question mark over there. Now we want to encode this data basically, because the readable stream works with bytes. So if we go over here and look at the documentation, it represents a readable stream of byte data, right? So we want to encode the data as bytes and then send it back, so before that, we'll check if there's a prefix character of /n/n. So if that is there, then we want nothing to be done in that, and then go to the next chunk of data which is coming in. This very boilerplate code, it's not necessary that you understand all of what is happening here, but it is a good thing to know a broad overview of what is happening. So we'll have this counter, basically it's like an iterator through it. I'll have a not here, let's do it here. Let's have a let counter is equal to 0, and the prefix is only at the start, okay, the /n/n. So we'll go if counter is less than 2, it's done over the first two, and text matches, obviously match, text.match, not text.matches. Passing the rejects here, so we'll have the rejects and we'll have /n there, that, or an empty array dot length. Basically what this is doing is, this will be true if it is not 0, right? So if it is 0, okay, how do I put this? If it is 1, basically it will be true, right? So the if condition will work, but if it is 0, that will be false, so the if condition won't work. So in that case, we'll just return, and we want nothing to be done over here. Now we want to encode the data, like I said, right? So we'll go const q, and we want to encode the text data as bytes. So we'll use a text encoder. I'll just go to the top over here. we can add this at the top of the function here. Let's do const encoder is equal to new text encoder. What we want to do is encoder dot encode and then pass in the text over here. All right. Now we want to work now send this now to the front end, right? So that is for that we will call this function over here. If I go to the examples, it get the data and send it to the browser via the controller. We call the onQueue function over here. So we go controller dot onQueue onQueue, I don't know the pronunciation, dot enqueue, and we pass in the queue, and then we'll just call counter plus plus, else this won't ever go to greater than 2, greater than equal to 2. So we've basically done with the readable stream, how that works. Now we want to parse the data and then feed chunks of data to this function, right? So if we look at this, what basically they are doing is they are calling the push function. But in our case, what we want to do is we want to push the event with the push. How do I put this? We want to basically push the chunk of data into the push function, right? So that's what we are doing over here. So for that, what we want to do is, if you look at this event source parser, they actually send this create parser the on pass function, in our case the push function. My tongue is twisting now. Okay. So what we want to do is, after this closure function of push, after this ends, we want to create that parser. So we call const parser is equal to create parser, which comes from event source dash parser, and we pass in the push function over here, and we wait for all the chunks to come in now. So if you look at this is very similar. This is using an SSC stream, which is a server sent stream, and basically what this does is, if I look at this, it explains what it does. It streams the response SSC from OpenAI, and that may be fragmented into multiple chunks. So this ensures that we get properly readable chunks and then invoke an event for each SSC stream which is being sent in. That is why we do this, and we do an asynchronous iteration over the chunks. This is just JavaScript. So we for await const chunk of res.body. Let's actually, okay, this needs to be an asynchronous function now, right? So this start function will now be asynchronous. And again, this might be not working, so let's just any type this for now. And then so we get the parser now, right? So we need to feed the data to this parser. So we go parser dot feed. Now for example, this chunk is any, obviously we want to decode this data. So we go decoder. Obviously we don't have a decoder yet, so we go to the top and we add a decoder. It's equal to new text decoder, and we go decoder dot decode chunk. We are done. We're basically done. I have one line left actually. Let's return the stream at the end. Okay, we're basically done with our backend now. So let's go over this whole file again. What we're doing is we get fetching the response from OpenAI in the form of a stream, correct? Now what that is doing is it is sending back a stream, and then we're using new readable stream and calling the start function as the configuration on the readable stream. Now what we do is we go over the chunks of data which is being sent in by OpenAI, and we feed it to the parser, and that calls the push function. Right now the push function takes in the event which is being coming from the create parser. So the event, we get the event type, we check if it is an event, and we get the data which is being sent by the event. Now if data is done inside square brackets, we know that the data has stopped coming in after this, so we close the controller and then return out of the function. Now we try, we have a try catch if it works or not. If it doesn't work, let's just controller error out the error. Else we'll get the JSON from the data, we'll get the text from the JSON. If you want, let's actually console.log the JSON dot choices over here to show you what that is. Now If counter is less than 2, the first two prefixes we're checking for that. If that is there, then let's return this. Then we want to encode the data in the form of bytes and then send it inside the enqueue or the onqueue function. And we'll since this is basically like an iterator, we plus it. All right, that is our backend essentially. Now we go back to our front end. Now, when this has started coming, right? So what we want to do is, let me just open the reference code. Okay. First of all, we check if the response is there, right? So let's just go and do if response is not okay. So if we go if not response dot okay, okay, I can't type. Yeah, okay. Let's throw a new error response.status text. Alright, sorry, res.status text, and this is res. My bad. Okay, now let's get the data as response.body. If data does not okay, I keep calling this res. Sorry, if data does not exist, then we return. Alright, now we need to get in a reader to read over the data which is being sent in. So if I look at this data object over here, res.body, let's see what this does, right? Now, getReader method of the readable stream interface creates a reader and logs a stream to it. So it just logs the stream, and it's just a way of working with the readable stream. All right. Now we get that we create a reader which is data.getReader. All right. Now we want to decode the byte data which is coming in. So we get the const. Okay, let's go const decoder is new text decoder. We don't need this. We can remove that. And I want to do this is done. So let's just have a done false and a while loop to check if it's not done yet. So till the time it is done. Okay, this is basically what we want, but I'll go with this. So if I await reader.read, all right, this sends the value and something called the done variable. So we can get the const value and the done, but we want to rename this because we have this already initialized here. So we go done reading, and we go done is equal to done reading, obviously, and we go let's get the chunks of the values from value. For that we'll go const chunk value is obviously decoder.decode value, because we want to decode the byte data and we want to set the response now. This is where you will have to use something like a state machine, because see, basically what is happening is this is a component inside the page, right? This is a component here, but the response is another component. Now you can send it back, but this is a server component, and that will cause a lot of issues for you. So we'll use something called Jotai in this case. So I know the right pronunciation, but Jotai is state machine. So Jota is a very lightweight state machine, which you can use in your application, and it's very easy to use compared to something like Redux or Xstate, right? All you need to do is let's go npm install Jota. Ignore the top. All right, let's go npm install Jota. Okay, looks like my video stopped working. Let's see. I know when my video stopped working. Sorry about that. Okay, I think my camera is up again. Right, so we've installed Jotai now, and now what we want to do is we want to set the response in a like master state, or the main state we can call it. So for that I will, inside the utils function, I have a store.ts. all right, now let's open store.ts, and what we want to do here is very simple. Just import atom. Let's import atom from Jotai. So just follow along with me here. This is very, very simple. Just don't, uh, let's not complicate this too much. We'll have a cons response atom, which will be a string of response, but we want to have this inside a state because this will update very often. And how this works is this will be an atom of that. So basically, if you look at this, create atoms. I didn't know this existed. Huh. It's not needed for us. Anyways, so this is a primitive atom. First, create atoms and derive atoms to build state. So we create this atom over here. It will infer that this is a string, just like a normal generics do. Now what we want to do is we derive this atom. That's fine. Now we want to use this atom. So for that, we'll have the use atom hook. Basically, what we do is save this first of all. Oh, now inside the form, what we want to do is set the response over here, right? So for that, all we need to do is do const response and set response just like normal state. Use atom which comes from Jotai, and we want to pass in the response atom to this which we exported from the store. Now we have this use atom. We got the response. We don't need the response, so we can just do an underscore over there, or underscore response. We don't need that, so that's fine. But here, after we get the chunk value, let's set response to the chunk value, which in our case is a string because we decode it. This is the byte data, and we decode it and we send it back. It is very, very simple to do this. Now what we want to do is, okay, obviously set is loading to false in the end because it will keep showing loading or and have the button as received. All right, now that is done. Now what I want to do is have the response component over here. So we after this, basically at the end after this we'll have the response. Obviously let's have GPT response, I guess let's call that, and we need to inside components, let's have GPT response .tsx. Let's export default function name GPT response and return something over here, right? So very easy again. Let's just have the div first of all. I think that's about what I want. Yup, that's actually what I want exactly. And we'll have a p tag over here, text rate 200, great. And close the p tag over here. Now we get the response again, very easy. It's just const response. Again, we can have set response if we want to here. We don't need it. It's just called use atom, which comes from Jotai, and pass in the response atom. Very easy to use this. Just say if we have response, then we show response, show response goes to. Now what we want to do, go over here, import this, go back, go to your local host 3000, and let's just look at this a little second. Okay, the GPT response needs to be use client because we're using Jotai over there. So add a use client hook here. Moment of truth. Let's see if this works. All right. Okay, I need a padding on this text area. 1 second. Let's add P4, I guess. Okay. Let's see if this works. All right. 1 second. Let me just copy this prompt I had somewhere. Okay, let's remove the last part. I opened something else. Yeah. Okay, let's add that. All right. Generate a Twitter bio for me. I'm a full stack developer and a high schooler who codes, high school graduate, I guess. Graduated, no, who codes in JavaScript and TypeScript. I'm a developer at typescript.dev. Let's see if this works. Click on ask and let's see. 3, 2, 1. That didn't work. I don't think that worked. Okay, let's go back and look at the. What does that not work? E dot prevent default handle submit is oh my. Okay, let's change this. Let's have handle submit inside this. Let's try again. Paste what we had before and we'll say, yeah, I'm a developer. Gonna ask. Ah, it is. It is almost there, and I just almost did this. Basically, what we want to do is get the previous response from set response and pass in that previous, and then add chunk value to it at the end, right? So we want to append to it because it just sends normal chunks of data and not all the chunk like with the previous chunk it doesn't send that together, so we need to append that right now. Let's just copy this and then refresh just for the sake of it once. Paste that, click on ask, and that works. Full stack developer and high school grad, coding in JavaScript and TypeScript developer and type1.dev, passionate about creating solutions that make a difference. I am not a gaming enthusiast, but that's fine. We have these, and we have the app already created. Actually, you know what? This is pretty good. I'll copy this for later. But we have the app. The main agenda of the app was to show you how to stream data, but we have created a mini ChatGPT kind of thing over here. So that is it for this app. We took about 50 minutes, and most of it was me blabbering about well stuff. But if you just have this utils function, OpenAI stream, and this will be pretty standard for you. So you can just copy paste this whole thing inside our application and just customize it according to your needs, and you should be good to go. And so I will be starting to put in more OpenAI content now because, well, that's a trend. But that's it for this video. And if you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more such content. Again, subscribe and click on the bell icon, and see you in the next video. Bye.